So, let's talk about a journey that, on the surface, seems like a pretty straightforward adventure for treasure. But as we're about to see, it morphs into something, well, something much, much deeper. It becomes this powerful parable, really, a deep dive into the nature of the human soul itself.
And that whole idea really boils down to this one central question. It's what the entire story hangs on, right? What's actually more powerful? Is it a mountain piled high with glittering gold, or is it a single, quiet act of mercy?
So, okay, how do you get from A to B? How does a basic quest for gold turn into this profound moral puzzle? Well, like a lot of epic tales, it all kicks off with a really simple, really tangible goal.
Yeah, the mission couldn't have been clearer. Go get back a mountain packed with lost treasure. That's it. The whole point was about material wealth, right? A massive fortune that a dragon had been sitting on for ages. It was all about reclaiming what was lost. Simple. Or maybe not so simple, as it turns out.
You see, here's the thing about treasure that's been hoarded by a dragon. It's almost like it soaks up some of that dragon's poison. And this is where we get to the real heart of the conflict in this parable. This incredibly corrupting influence that gets a name, dragon sickness. And let's be clear, dragon sickness is way more than just being greedy. The source material actually calls it a linguistic symbol. What does that mean? It means it's a poison that infects your very words. It changes how you think, how you talk. Everything starts to revolve around mind, around ownership and suspicion. And when it corrupts your language, well, it's really corrupting your soul.
And the way this sickness takes hold is, man, it's insidious. It starts small, just a refusal to share a little bit. But then that blossoms into this all-consuming obsession with ownership. Before you know it, your whole worldview is twisted. You start thinking like a predator, where hoarding stuff becomes way more important than helping the very people who were hurt by the dragon in the first place. And this quote, it just nails how deep the corruption goes. Thorin Oakenshield, the dwarves' leader, he doesn't just want his gold back. He literally starts to think like the dragon. He starts to talk like the dragon. His entire language shifts to hoarding and suspicion. It's this complete moral and linguistic decay that just walls him off from everyone.
Okay, but here's the good news. Every poison has an antidote, right? And in this parable, the cure for dragon sickness doesn't come from a mighty warrior. It comes from the most unlikely hero you can imagine, a quiet hobbit who stumbles upon a completely different way of looking at the world.
So you might think the antidote to this crazy, all-consuming greed would be a magic sword or a huge army. But nope, it's pity. It's just a quiet, silent understanding of someone else's pain. And believe it or not, this inner strength, this quiet empathy, turns out to be the most powerful weapon in the entire tale.
And our Hobbit hero Bilbo, he didn't just wake up with his moral compass fully formed. It was a process, a real journey. It all started way back with his encounter with Gollum, remember that? That moment he chose pity instead of just ending it. That single choice planted a seed. And that seed of empathy just kept growing as he watched greed tear his own friends apart. And it all culminates in this beautiful moment where he finally, truly chooses people and peace over objects and profit.
So you really have these two completely opposite worldviews clashing. On one side, you've got what we can call dragon logic. It's all about hoarding, ownership, suspicion, a language of pure survival. But then, on the other side, you have Hobbit empathy. And that's all about mercy, connection, understanding, a totally empathetic way of communicating. The whole story, really, is a battle between these two philosophies.
And this massive philosophical war, it all comes to a boiling point over one single object, the legendary heart of the mountain, the Arkenstone.
Now, the Arkenstone isn't just some pretty rock. No way. It's the ultimate symbol of the Dwarf King's pride, their entire heritage wrapped up in one jewel. And because it means so much, it basically becomes a magnet for all that dragon sickness. It just amplifies that obsession with ownership until it's a raging fever.
So what does Bilbo do when he gets his hands on it? He sees the absolute madness this stone is causing, and he makes a choice. Instead of hoarding it for himself, he decides to use it as, well, the source material calls it a linguistic bridge, a tool for communication. His whole plan is to use this symbol of greed to force everyone to stop fighting over a thing and actually start talking to each other like people again.
I mean, think about that. This one selfless act is the absolute peak of Bilbo's moral journey. He takes the ultimate symbol of greed and flips it on its head, turning it into an instrument for peace. It is the defining moment for him, and it shows a level of wisdom and maturity that's just
leagues beyond anyone else on that mountain.
So where does this all lead? What's the final score in this battle between greed and mercy? Well, the ending shows us two things very clearly: the terrible, terrible cost of dragon sickness and the true, lasting reward of a hobbit's empathy.
Let's start with the cost, and it is a heavy one. The price for all that greed, that dragon sickness, is devastating. It ultimately costs the life of the king under the mountain himself, Thorin Oakenshield. His death is the tragic final punctuation mark on this lesson about how destructive hoarding and suspicion really are. And in the end, you realize it wasn't swords or armies that truly won the day. It was ideals. Mercy. That's the key that finally unlocks the resolution. And humility. That's the ultimate rebuke to the all-consuming lust for gold. This whole parable is really a celebration of these quiet virtues as the real source of power.
So what about Bilbo, our hero? His transformation is just total. Think about it. He left home looking for a piece of some treasure, but he came back with something so much more valuable. He came back with a wealth of wisdom, a deep understanding of the big, wide world and his own place in it.
So the real treasure here wasn't gold or priceless gems. Not at all. It was the stuff you can't put in a chest, a superior moral compass, an incredible wealth of wisdom and character, the knowledge that even a very ordinary person can do extraordinary things. And maybe most importantly, the realization that true power, it comes from the heart, from pity.
And this is where the parable turns the mirror back on us, isn't it? It leaves us with a pretty powerful question for our own lives. What are the treasures that we're hoarding? What are our own personal Arkenstones, whether they're material things or ideas or grudges, that we're holding on to so tightly that they stop us from building bridges to other people? And just think, what kind of bridges could we build if we were just willing to let them go?